Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of Belgium and Korea, my name is Adrien Carbonnet and I'm very happy to be with you for the kick-off event of this commemorative year. 2021 is an important year for Belgium and Korea, for it marks the 120th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between our two countries. On March the 23rd, 1901, exactly 120 years ago, the representatives of Belgium and Korea met in Seoul and signed a treaty of amity, commerce and navigation. This historical treaty paved the way for political, economic and cultural cooperation between Belgium and Korea. 120 years later, our relationship seems to be stronger than ever. On the occasion of this celebration, it is my great pleasure to welcome two distinguished guests. His Excellency Mr. Peter Lesquier, Ambassador of the Kingdom of Belgium to the Republic of Korea, and His Excellency Mr. Yoon Sung-gu, Ambassador of the Republic of Korea to the Kingdom of Belgium and the European Union. With them, I will discuss different aspects, present and future, of our bilateral relations. After the talk, you will be given the opportunity to ask questions to our two guests, so please don't hesitate to send your questions now via this YouTube channel. I will convey your questions to the ambassadors later. This talk with the ambassadors will last approximately 30 minutes, but before I give the floor to them, we will first start with a message from the two patrons of this commemorative year. For Belgium, Her Excellency Mrs. Sophie Wilmès, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, European Affairs and Foreign Trade and Federal Cultural Institutions. And for Korea, His Excellency Mr. Hwang Hee, Minister of Culture, Sports and Tourism. Without further ado, let's listen to the messages from the two ministers.
Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, the 23rd of March is an important day in the calendar of our bilateral relations. 120 years ago, a treaty of friendship, commerce, and navigation was signed between our two nations. Article 1 of that treaty mentions, and I quote, the establishment of a perpetual friendship and peace. The treaty has kept its promise. Since 1901, our people have been united in a valuable friendship. A friendship that is based on solidarity and support, even when times get rough. Belgium was indeed one of the first countries to recognize the Republic of Korea in 1948. A few years later, our country sent a battalion of young volunteers to fight for freedom and democracy on the Korean peninsula. After many peaceful decades that saw our country become more prosperous, we still share and promote the same values. Belgium and Korea are like-minded countries on many multilateral issues, whether it be the protection of human rights worldwide, the transition to a low-carbon economy, or the promotion of peace and economic cooperation. Our shared values make us not only political allies on the international scene, they offer much more than that. They make us appreciate each other, way of life, culture, education, and they help us to do business together very successfully. This close bond will definitely be visible in the host of events that both our countries have prepared to celebrate this year. We want to show what our friendship is built upon, as well as what it has in store for the future. This partnership includes cultural, business and academic events, as well as a whole array of exciting Belgo-Korean collaboration in the performing arts that re-event traditional and history. The COVID-19 pandemic may indeed be hampering the agenda of festivities which require physical audiences and participation, but it also pushes our imaginative power. Together with the Korean graffiti artist Sina, our embassy in Seoul has created a Belgian-Korean wall. It combines cultural icons of our two countries, such as the traditional mask of Andong with those of the Gilles de Binche. Here in Brussels, the tram wrap and other exciting projects will not go unnoticed. thanks to the hard work of the Korean Cultural Center and the Korean Embassy. 2021 is a special year to look back at what we have built together over the past 120 years. Above all, this anniversary must be an opportunity to look to the future, which will undoubtedly bring new opportunities for cooperation between our two countries. Let us celebrate together. Oliam Jekkayaweyo.
존경하는 소피 윌메 장관님, 친애하는 벨기에 국민 여러분, 안녕하십니까? 대한민국 문화체육관광부 장관 황희입니다. 올해는 한국과 벨기에가 수교를 맺은 지 120년이 되는 뜻깊은 해입니다. 두 나라의 오랜 우정을 기념하는 오늘 자리에 후견인으로서 소피 윌메 장관님과 함께하게 되어 매우 기쁘고 벅찬 마음입니다. 아쉽게도 영상으로 마음을 전할 수밖에 없지만 한국의 봄 기운이 그랑플라스 광장까지 가다 양국 국민들에게 이번 행사가 따스한 추억으로 남기를 바랍니다. 1901년 조백수호 통상조약으로 시작된 양국의 인연은 나날이 깊어지고 있습니다. 1980년 문화협정이 체결된 이래 한국과 벨기에는 다채로운 문화 교류를 통해 양국 국민들에게 즐겁고 행복한 시간을 선사해 왔습니다. 한국의 어린이들은 벨기에 만화의 거장 에르제의 땡땡이의 모험을 읽으며 도전과 모험을 꿈꾸고 어른이 되어서는 르네 마그리트의 그림을 보며 미래에 대한 희망과 이상을 키워나갑니다. 최근 벨기에에서도 한국 영화와 K-팝을 즐겨 찾는 국민들이 많다고 들었습니다. 이 자리를 빌려 한국 문화에 대한 벨기에 국민들의 관심에 깊이 감사드립니다. 비록 코로나19로 인해서 두 나라를 자유롭게 오갈 수는 없지만 그간 100년을 뛰어넘는 문화 교류로 이어진 우리의 심리적 거리는 그리 멀지 않습니다. 인생의 어려움은 우정이 극복한다는 벨기에 속담처럼 오늘 자리가 침체된 양국의 문화 관광업계의 빠른 회복을 위해 한 줄기 빛이 되기를 바랍니다. 대한민국은 수교 120주년을 맞이하여 다양한 문화 교류 행사를 준비하고 있습니다. 벨기에에서도 여러 행사를 준비하고 있는 것으로 알고 있습니다. 애써주신 관계자 여러분께 감사의 말씀을 전합니다. 다시 한번 양국의 수교 120주년을 축하하며 우리의 우호 관계가 앞으로도 흔들림 없이 이어지기를 기원합니다. 저 역시 후견인으로서 두 나라가 서로의 든든한 버팀목이 될 수 있도록 각별한 노력을 기울이겠습니다. 감사합니다.
I would like to thank Minister Wilmers and Mr. Huang, the two patrons of this year, for their messages. And now it is time to welcome our two guests. Ambassador Yoon, thank you very much for being with us today and for your precious help in the organization of this event. Ambassador Lescuyer, I know that it's already the evening in Korea. Thank you very much for joining us from Seoul. My first question is for you, Ambassador Lescuyer. You have been posted in Korea since July 2018, and prior to your current position, you served in China and you also headed the Northeast Asian division of the Belgian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. If I'm right, you were also trained in Oriental philology, so you have great expertise and experience in the Asian region. My question is, what are your impressions of the country and its people after almost 3 years spent in Korea?
Well, thank you for this question. Indeed, I have some experience with living in Asia, in the Far East, but then mainly in China. So when I arrived here in Seoul, it was the first time I set foot on Korean soil. And I must say, what I hadn't realized before arriving here is that this is a country with really many, many mountains. It's mountainous everywhere. And that makes it a paradise for hiking. The mountains are not the snow-capped giants like you see in Switzerland, for instance, but still they are pretty steep slopes. Well, For a hiker, it is paradise. You're not only because of the nature, but you're also rewarded by the sight of beautiful temples everywhere in the mountains. More interesting are, of course, the people as well. I think one thing Koreans and Belgians have in common, for instance, is they like good food, which is interesting if I organize something of a culinary nature. And I very soon discovered also that they speak an incredible, difficult language. And you, Professor, will agree, since you're teaching the language and I'm studying the language, so we both know how difficult it is. But I would say the main characteristic that I learned to appreciate in the Korean people is that they are so efficient and proactive. I saw that immediately when I had the pleasure of working with my local staff, but even more so when we had to organize the state visit, which was a very demanding task to do. Now, for the time being, I'm very fortunate to weather the pandemic, the COVID pandemic here in Korea, because at no time there has been restrictions to the same amount as they've been elsewhere in Europe. No curfew, no restaurants closed. So for the time being, with living in Korea under COVID is much more agreeable as it is in a country like Belgium for now. I don't know if I will say the same in September, when in Belgium we aim to have most of the people vaccinated and achieve herd immunity and go back to normal life, while here it will take a little longer, I understood, and so they are more aiming towards November. But still, for the time being, I'm very appreciative of the way the Korean government is handling the current pandemic.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Lescuyer. Ambassador Yoon, prior to your current position, you served as Deputy Minister for Political Affairs and Ambassador to Egypt. You presented your credentials in December 2019. That's to say a couple of months before the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemics. Can easily imagine that due to the current situation, you haven't been able to travel extensively. But I'm curious to hear what your impressions of Belgium and its people are.
Thank you, Professor Carbonnet, and very nice to see you, Ambassador Lescuyer. It's great to be here with you. My experience as an ambassador is quite limited because I was forced to stay in Brussels for most of my careers here in Belgium. But the people I met here in Belgium are quite impressive. In my view, they are quite inclusive and open-minded, and they speak as many as foreign language that I should. It's quite impressive. And it's, geographically, Belgium is well positioned. It's very easy to travel to other neighboring countries. It's going to take around less than 1 year. 1 year is enough to reach neighboring countries. And I'm really jealous of the green surrounding of Belgium. The Ambassador Lescuyer talked about the mountain of Korea. Here, the ordinal geography is flat. But in Brussels, no matter where you go, you could find easily a very attractive park and green areas. So I think that this offers very relaxed atmosphere and peace at mind. So I think that all in all, this is a country, it's a well-balanced between nice people and green surroundings. I have good impressions. Immediately after the end of this pandemics, I'm determined to travel a lot here in Belgium.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Ambassador Lescuyer, you briefly mentioned it previously, but one of the most important events you organized in Korea were the state visits of Their Majesties, the King and the Queen of the Belgians in March 2019. Could you say a few words about this state visit?
With pleasure. A state visit is a very rare event. So I was very happy to, at the beginning of my posting here, to be able to receive the King and the Queen of the Belgians for a state visit. I think the only state visit of a Korean president to Belgium I know of was in 1986 with President Chun Doo-hwan. From the Belgian side to Korea, His Majesty King Baudouin came on a state visit in 1992, and then there was indeed the state visit of Their Majesties the King and the Queen of the Belgians in March 2019. It was a 3-day visit with a very full agenda, a very packed full of activities with a great variation within the activities. For the King, for instance, he had an opportunity to witness traditional culture. Together with the Queen, he witnessed a tea ceremony at the Furniture Museum, and he also witnessed a Taekwondo demonstration, but at the same time, he also attended a seminar on the use of artificial intelligence in the health sector and a seminar on smart cities development. He met with captains of industry, but he also met with small-scale social entrepreneurs. And he, of course, was also focusing on the commemoration of the fallen soldiers, the volunteers, the Belgian volunteers during the Korean War. But he also enjoyed song and dance at the Belgian festival. Mm-hmm. And I think the activities of the Queen were as numerous as well. As a UN advocate for the social development, social development goals, she attended a symposium on circular economy in Songdo and had an event on climate change with UNICEF Korea and Korean children. But she was also interested in music education. So she went to the Korean National University of Arts, to the School of Music, and she had also interesting conversations about mental health. Now, apart from the King and the Queen, they were also accompanied by ministers of regions and communities who had a very rich program as well. Just given a few examples of them, they had a seminar on imagining cities, or they attended an art exposition on imagining cities of the future through art. They had seminars on digital media at the Digital Media City. They had seminars on life science and healthcare, on fintech, and so on and so on. So all these activities gave us enough incentives to work on for the coming years.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Ambassador Yoon, so Belgium and Korea established diplomatic relations in 1901, but Belgium decided to close its consulate in Seoul at the end of World War I. And it was not until January 1951, in the midst of the Korean War, that the Belgians stepped onto the soil of Korea again. It is not very known here, but many Belgian soldiers participated in the Korean War. Could you tell us why this participation is widely regarded as a landmark in the history of our bilateral relations, and provide us with let's say, an overview of the military cooperation today?
Mm-hmm. During the Korean War, 16 countries sent their combat forces, including Belgium. They sacrificed invaluable lives to defend unknown people of unknown countries. We will never forget the sacrifice and commitment that Korean War veterans made for defending our countries. Thanks to their courageous effort, now Korean people, really enjoy the full-fledged democracy and prosperities. Without the valor of the Korean War veterans, this could not happen. So we are really grateful for the sacrifice and commitment that the Korean War veterans from the soldiers of Belgium has made to defend my countries. So that should serve as a quite important pillar to cement our bilateral relations. It's needless to say that. Well, so when it comes to the military cooperation with Belgium, This year, Special Forces of Korea will participate in the military parade to celebrate your National Day. And also, we are expecting a visit of Korean Navy vessel to Belgium port. And also, in the past, military academy officials get trained here in Belgium. But within the framework of NATO that Belgium belongs to, we have quite active mil-to-mil cooperations with NATO. We have quite outstanding long list of a cooperation program with NATO, and high-level military officials visit, to the other countries. So this is examples how we are close. We are close, in defense area to the NATO. So in short, at the bilateral level, we are not so active in terms of military cooperation, but we have had quite active military cooperation with NATO and as well as European Union.
Okay, I see. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next question. It is a question addressed to both of you. Could you update us on the progress made in the recent years in the area of bilateral trade? And can you also highlight the strengths of your respective countries? And finally, maybe what would be your message to potential investors? Let's start with Ambassador Lescuyer.
Yes. Well, according to our trade statistics, in 2020, the total exports of goods from Belgium to the Republic of Korea amounted to 1.8 billion euro, which is 11.3% more in comparison with 2019. The same year, the imports from Korea fell slightly by 2.9% to 2.3 billion euros. But you see there is still a trade gap to the advantage of Korea as far as commerce in goods go. Now, what kind of goods are we exporting to Korea? 40% of the value of our commodity exports are chemical products, and mainly in the category of drugs for therapeutic or prophylactic purposes. So medicines, actually, which should not be surprising if you know that Belgium is the third place worldwide for biopharma and pharma exports, representing a total value of almost 50 billion in 2019. 40% chemicals and 10% machinery and equipment as in the second place. That's already half of the value of our export to Korea. From Korea, Belgium exports mainly machinery and equipment, chemicals and transport equipment. I would say one of the main strengths of Belgium is logistics. Belgium is home to the second biggest port in Europe, the second most dense rail and waterway network, and the third most dense road network in Europe. It's also the sixth biggest cargo airport of Europe. The port of Antwerp-Bruges is the biggest oil and chemical cluster in Europe and is the second largest in the world. It's a leading player in green energy transition, and we are now talking a lot about a hydrogen economy. They are investing a lot in this with various scale-ups under construction. Another strong sector is, of course, the life science industry. Due to the geographical concentration of companies, research centers, academic hospitals, vocational training centers, as well as venture capital firms, all in a small area. And it's then not surprising that over 1,800 medicines are currently in development in Belgium, including more than 400 for cancer treatment and more than 200 for immunological disorders, making Belgium one of the world's most productive medicine development hubs. So, to conclude, Belgium belongs to the top 5 European countries in attractiveness for foreign investors. There is a significant partnership potential for innovative Korean companies especially those engaged in the implementation of the Korean New Deal projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Lesquier. I will now give the floor to Ambassador Yoon.
Ambassador Lesquier already mentioned many things, so I have little to add. But all in all, both Korea and Belgium has great potential for economic cooperations. As Ambassador Lesquier mentions, our bilateral trade has steadily increased. All in all, trade volume. So we have quite impressive trade, trade with Belgium in our favor, a bit in favor, basically. But all in all, the cumulative amount of our investment between two countries have reached a total of 6.9 billion euros. So it's a quite impressive one. What is more appealing to me is that one of the transnational corporation of Belgium, so like Solvay and Umicore, continue to invest in Korea. Particularly, I'm very much impressed by the track record that they are continue to invest in the hydrogens and other high-tech area. And also quite recently, last year, we posted 500 million trade, with Belgium in the area of medical goods and equipment. We have provided testing kits to Belgium at the initial stage of COVID-19. And also this year, we imported, huge volumes of Pfizer vaccines, which was produced in Belgium. This is a quite mutually reinforcing cooperation case. So I think that all in all, we would like to increase our trade cooperation with Belgium, in the years to come.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Ambassador Lesquier, I'm totally not a related question, totally different. I'm curious to know how is Belgian and more specifically our culture perceived in Korea. Can you tell us what has been done to increase, let's say, the awareness about our country among Korean citizens?
Well, like in other countries in Asia, Belgium is associated with beer and chocolate, and it's the same everywhere. And sport enthusiasts will also be aware that Belgium has an excellent soccer team with the same name as the Korean soccer team, by the way, the Red Devils. And maybe, certainly many also know Tintin or the Smurfs, but often without being aware that they are the work of Belgian artists. Now, this anniversary year is an opportunity for us to show to a wider Korean public that Belgium is much more than that. So we will participate in the Busan Short Film Festival, in the Jazz Festival in Daegu, in the Seoul International Dance Festival, in the Busan Performing Art Festival, in the Bucheon International Animation Festival, and many more. In the first half of the year, unfortunately, mostly online, as long as the pandemic is still rampant. Now, we will organize our own Belgian festival in October. I hope the situation will then be better and that we can invite a big public to that. And in that Belgian festival, we will not only introduce our Belgian culinary specialities, but we also invite Belgian artists who will give performances of musicians and street artists.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Lesquier. Ambassador Yoon, we are presently in this beautiful Korean Cultural Center in Brussels. And I know that this institution has been playing a very important role in promoting Korean culture here in Belgium. Could you briefly introduce this institution?
Yes, the Korean Cultural Center in Belgium was established in November 2013. There are 32 Korean Cultural Centers worldwide. Korean Cultural Center in Belgium is one of them. But it was established earlier than the ones in Italy and Austria. So, it has a long history. The main role of Cultural Center is to introduce Korean culture here and to promote cultural exchange between two countries. Brussels is the capital of Belgium, and also it is one of the important regions for Korea where European Union headquarters is located. So it is placed at the strategically important locations, actually. Korean Cultural Center offers a variety of cooperation programs. The average Belgian people can make a visit Korean Cultural Center here. They offer a variety of programs. Mm-hmm. They could taste the Korean food. They could view Korean films, and also Korean cuisine, and a variety of programs that could be offered to the average Belgians. So you could feel the real beauty of Korean pop culture here. Mm-hmm. And there are many exhibitions and special events will be held here in Korean Cultural Center. This is a quite important framework. Mm-hmm. And platforms to introduce Korean pop culture to the foreign friends.
I see. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next question. It's a question addressed to both of you. Well, I think we all agree that we would like to see more Koreans, both students and tourists, stay in Belgium, and vice versa, more Belgians stay in Korea. My question is, how do you see the situation, and what concrete measures can be taken to strengthen this aspect of the relation, of course, when this global pandemic is behind us? Ambassador Lescuyer.
Well, the embassy is working hard to promote academic exchanges. We support alumni associations, and we encourage Korean and Belgian institutes of higher education to organize joint online seminars. So only this year, there will be at least 10 of these online seminars happening, also in the framework of the 120 years anniversary. We also promote scholarship programs, such as the ASEM Duo program, which is not only for students, but also for researchers and the teaching staff. In 2016, the working holiday program between Belgium and Korea came into force. It allows young people up to 30 years old to visit and stay in each other's country for up to a year. My staff and myself regularly make visits to elementary, middle and high schools to make Belgium better known to a young public, in the belief that they will become the future generation of tourists to Belgium. A real great boost to tourism in both directions would be a direct passenger flight connection between Brussels and Seoul. We are not there yet, but we keep trying.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Ambassador Yoon.
Mm-hmm. There are a couple of different dimensions. Firstly, as Ambassador Lescuyer said, working holiday program is to facilitate the exchange of young generations between two countries is quite important. And also, Korean government offers very generous scholarship programs, which will be open to the Belgium youth. Mm-hmm. So we are going to offer a quite generous scholarship programs which covers living costs and tuitions for graduate study in Korea. Mm-hmm. So this year we are going to select two Belgian, the smart students who has a strong desire to study in Korea. We'll provide them. And also at the different levels, as a professor, you made a great effort to promote exchange of young generations, and also to promote Korean studies here. You are running a Center for Korean Studies at the KU Leuven University. It's a quite important window to know more about the Korea by the Belgian peoples. And also Ghent University opened a branch campus in Songdo. I think that it is also quite important gestures, to promote the scholarly works and exchange of peoples, particularly young peoples. This is another things. And also we are organizing special programs to promote the exchange of peoples, even during the pandemic period. This November, under the UN leaderships, we are going to organize some special seminars on pandemics. Mm-hmm. So I think that this will provide good opportunities to learn the experience that Korea and Belgium, has in combating COVID-19. And these kinds of things will eventually will advance our cooperations in this field.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Yoon. The next question is also addressed to both of you. It's the most tricky question. If you had to recommend two places, one in Korea and one in Belgium, to someone who has never visited our two countries, where would it be? Ambassador Lescuyer.
Yes, that's indeed a very difficult question because there are so many places you definitely have to visit, of course. For Korea, I would definitely say Jeju Island with its warm weather, its beautiful beaches with surfing possibilities. They also have 3 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. They have lava tube caves. They have waterfalls. They have theme parks, you name it. So it's a paradise for tourists. For Belgium, well, my hometown is Bruges, is Brugge. Normally, I should make publicity for Bruges, but I don't think it's needed because so many Koreans know already about Bruges, this nice medieval town. But I would encourage them to also, when they are in Belgium, to visit less known places that are definitely also worth visiting. In the south, why not go, for instance, to explore the center of the earth in the cave of Han, one of the most beautiful caves in Europe. And so after you have visited, you don't have to return home immediately, but you can sleep in the trees of its wildlife park, amongst the deers, the Przewalski horses, mouflons and other animals that live or used to live in the forest of southern Belgium.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Yoon, your two favorite places in Korea and Belgium?
Well, if I would recommend one cities or one place for a respective country, I would say the Seoul and Brugge. Coincidentally, same with the Ambassador Lescuyer. Seoul is metropolitan cities. It's a quite internationally renowned cities. Around 10 million inhabitants. We have 10 million inhabitants. Seoul is referred to as a city that never sleeps, or most dynamic city in the world. If you want to see Korean history and traditions, I would advise you to go to the Gyeongbokgung Royal Palace and Insadong in central downtown of Seoul. And if you want to enjoy Seoul's nightlife, you need to go to the Gangnam Street or Hongdae. These places attract many young generations. A very nice place to enjoy your life, your nightlife. But if you are interested in tasting food from most of the world, you could visit to Itaewon. Yes, it's a very nice place also to visit. One of the tourist destinations, must-see destinations. Among the cities in Belgium, unfortunately, my experience is quite limited due to the coronavirus. I would like the Brugge simply because this is quite, as Ambassador Lescuyer said, prosper medieval cities. I realized that. I've been there several times, of course. Today, Brugge retains much of the medieval appearance, even today, and the canals and all the buildings that runs through the city, and breweries throughout the city, and the Belgian beers sold there. So all these make it a taste of its own. So Brugge should be on the bucket list for your next travels to Belgium.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Lescuyer, we are celebrating this 120th anniversary. Could you highlight the most important events that will take place in Korea during this commemorative year?
Well, there are many events, and I would recommend everybody who is interested and who wants to know what we are organizing throughout the year to visit regularly our website, Korea Belgium 120, which is updated regularly. The most important events will take place in the second half of the year, of course, because as long as 14 days of quarantine upon arrival in Korea is still mandatory, it's impossible for me to invite Belgian artists to Korea. Now, I mentioned already the Belgian Festival in October, but I am also looking forward very much to the concert of the Brussels Philharmonic Orchestra on the 3rd of December with guest solo pianist Jae-hyuk Cho. And then towards the end of the year, we also expect a visit to Korea of Minister Wilmes. As we learned from the introductory video message, she is the patron on the Belgian side of the 120-year celebrations.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Ambassador Yoon, could you highlight the most important events taking place here in Belgium?
Yes, various events will be held throughout this year here in Belgium also to celebrate 120th anniversary of our diplomatic ties. There are many events ranging from, again, Korea's Army's participation to the military parade here in Belgium, and also a visit of Korean Navy vessel to Belgium port, and musical performance, and the special exhibitions, and special event. There are many. But the most representative one is the K-Culture Day held in September at place the Bruckner Square in Belgium, in Brussels actually. Performances such as Korean traditional ones and K-pop are held on the large outdoor stage. So, of course, everything will depend upon the progress of COVID-19. So once the situation will permit us to do so, head of Korean Cultural Center prepared a lot of things now. So I hope that everything will go smoothly as scheduled. But we will be able to taste the Korean street food and experience Korean culture at more than 30 booths. And before and after that event, Korean traditional performance in Bojar, are scheduled, and Korean film will be shown in theaters in Brussels and also Antwerp. And Korean comic exhibitions also will be held in the manga museums. Okay. So we are now prepared a variety of events throughout the years. So hopefully, once the situation permits us to do so, we will be happy to do that.
I see.
We have a lot of lists.
Thank you very much. It is now time to take some questions, some digital questions from the audience. But before giving you the floor, we have a small surprise for you. Lee Nam, one of the most talented media artists in the world, created, especially for this 120th anniversary, a video clip symbolizing friendship and cooperation between Belgium and Korea. This work, entitled 다시 태어나는 빛, or Reborn Light, is inspired by traditional Korean landscape paintings, but not only. You will see. Amazing. I hope that you appreciate this Korean homage to our Belgian surrealism. You can find a long version of this video clip online on this YouTube channel of the Korean Embassy in Brussels. As promised, I will now convey to our guests a selection of questions we've just received from you. The first question is addressed to both of you, Ambassador Lescuyer and Ambassador Yoon. It's a question from Ali. How is this pandemic going to affect the young people willing to move to Korea and to Belgium? Ambassador Lescuyer?
Well, right now it's affecting people very much, not only the young people, but every travelers. I just said the quarantine requirement of 14 days is kind of prohibitive for people who only stay for a short term, for a short period in Korea if they want to perform, or so it's only for a few days. If they have to start their stay in Korea with an expensive 14 days quarantine requirements. We don't know who it will involve. More and more people get vaccinated now. Maybe it will be in the future possible to get a waiver for this quarantine requirement once people are vaccinated. We don't know yet. So we'll have to see and hope that the situation will normalize towards the second half of the year.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Ambassador Yoon.
Yes. Well, Belgium government does not allow non-essential travel. So officially, for tourism purpose, people cannot enter into the Belgium. So everything will depend upon the progress of COVID-19. Hopefully, the speed of vaccinations will speed up eventually, and I would like to see many Korean tourists will once again come to the Belgium. Belgium has a quite important strategic interest because it is very close to major European cities. It's going to take around an hour, within an hour, so we could reach a border of the neighboring countries. And also Belgium has its own attractive, tourist attraction point. Right. Like, it's a Belgian beer and Belgian chocolate, one of the most attractive gifts to the Korean tourist. And also it's placed at the strategically important locations at the center of the European continent. For that region, Belgium has served as an important role to cement and integrate the European countries. So I think that immediately when we get a brighter perspective of the COVID-19, we will see many Korean tourists to come to Belgium, hopefully.
Thank you very much. The second question is from Nadia, and it's a question also addressed to both of you. Ambassador Lescuyer, how can we bring closer the young people of Korea in Belgium?
Yes, well, of course, it's important. Person-to-person relations is a very important thing. The first question, we already said that under the current COVID pandemic, it's very difficult. So they can meet online for the time being only. And so, well, I think we have to work for the time being through academic contacts. So institutions of higher learning, both in Belgium and Korea, having joint programs, working together. That's a channel also for young people to get to know each other. For tourism, it's too early. And as Ambassador Yoon just said, at least until the end of the month, it's not permitted for Belgians to leave the country for Korea for non-essential travel. And we don't know if that will, for how long that will be the case after the 28th of March, because it might be lifted for countries within the European Union, but not necessary for third countries out of the European Union. So for the time being, it will be mainly through Zoom, like we are doing now, or online rather than physical contacts.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Yoon, do you have something to add? How can we bring closer the young people of our two countries?
Yes, well, unfortunately, this is pandemic seasons. But Korea's K-pop and Korea's popular culture is really appealing to the youth of the world, including Belgians.
Right.
So once we are going to make a quite impressive and attractive, the things, I think that it's quite, it can be appeal to the Belgian youth. So it will eventually, contribute to the promoting exchange and the integration of the young generations. I think that already we have seen very impressive video and other types of a untagged product, and also you have seen the Parasite, the film of Parasite. Korean's Cultural Center offers a lot of good product of Korean cinema, and which attract, of course, a lot of young generation of Belgians to watch that. So I think that this is quite a limited way to promote our exchange. But once, again, the situations permit us to increase our contact and interactions, eventually, we will see the flooding of a Korean tourists and young students to Belgium, and vice versa, I believe.
I see. Thank you very much. This is my last question to both of you to conclude this celebration. Well, I know that you're not fortune tellers, so I'm not going to ask you how the next 120 years will be. But I would like to hear from both of you how you see our relations in the coming years. Ambassador Lescuyer?
Well, note that both countries have committed to achieve a carbon-free economy by 2050. I expect a strong academic and commercial cooperation in the field of green technologies and renewable energy, as we can learn a lot of each other in that field. During the state visit, the focus was mainly on 5G, smart cities, artificial intelligence, which are very important as well. But now the commitment, which is quite recent from the Korean side to go for green sustainable growth, gives new opportunities we will have to explore and to develop. Korean universities are faced with a diminishing number of students due to the aging of the population, and they are working for international cooperation to remain relevant. So we see now already a growing interest to work with Belgian academic institutions, and I expect that this trend will be even more pronounced in the future. And then lastly, on the political side, I hope that the visit of our foreign minister to Korea will be the start of a regular bilateral political dialogue at senior officials level, because both countries promote rules-based multilateralism and will gain from regularly exchanging views on how that can be best achieved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Yoon, yes, how do you see the...
Yes, Ambassador Lescuyer already intercepted the point I'm trying to make, so I have a little to add. Well, actually, we share the same democratic values, and we also stress the importance of a rule-based international order. That is the fundamental a cornerstone that both countries, share. And Korea and Belgium, both countries are surrounded by big neighbors. So we have quite a similar strategic environment. But in case of Belgium, they surmounted these difficulties and hardships. They became the hub of European integrations. We would like to emulate the path that you have taken. So this is a quite important lesson that we learned from Belgium experience. And I'm really honored to represent my countries in this important period, 120th anniversary of diplomatic ties between two countries. I will do my best. But the friends, we are friends to Belgium. The friends stand always there, even at the difficult times. So I think that's, you know, but don't leave as it is, because basically we need to pull our collective wisdoms, you know, to cultivate this good spirit between two countries. We have quite active program of cooperation in many fields. So we need to develop, you know, cooperation programs to reactivate this existing cooperation mechanism. So, you know, so I'll do my best as an ambassador through the close cooperation with the Ambassador Lescuyer to promote these important bilateral relations. We have a brighter future, I believe.
Thank you. Ambassador Lescuyer, Ambassador Yoon, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. Thank you for watching. I wish a nice day to those of you who are presently in Belgium, and a good evening to those following us from Korea. 감사합니다. Dankjewel, merci, and take care.
감사합니다. Thank you for having me.